Okay, this is a video I've not seen anybody do. They've done comparisons of one set before, but let's just break it down into both sets. I tested the 23mm F1.4 on two different occasions. I finally found someone that was switching systems, and I got a 23mm F1.4 for $280, basically as new condition. Let's compare that with the 23mm F2, and then we have the 35mm F1.4 compared to the 35mm F2. Let's first start out with the, well, let's actually talk about some of the similarities between both. Actually, let's play both side by side. I got the second XT2 here, the 35mm F2 and the 23mm F2. What do these two things have in common? Let's just do a really simple side-by-side comparison, go down the line, because not everybody's wants and desires are the same as everybody else's. Faster autofocus. We don't have issues with aperture chatter. Obviously the 35mm F2 and the 23mm F2 are Fuji's newest lenses. Smaller form factor, obviously so. Don't have noise for autofocus. Been using the 23mm F2 lovingly and happily on my new Zhiyun Crane gimbal. Small little lens, doesn't make noise in autofocus, and it's also perfect for infrared photography, by the way, especially on the XT2. Absolutely love the new lens hood on the 23mm F2, which I've got over here on the right, which you can also stick on the 35mm F2. Very, very simple, never need to take it off the lens. What do they have in common relative to the 35mm F1.4 and the 23mm F1.4? Both of these have aperture chatter. Really bad on the 35mm F1.4. I made a video on aperture chatter. Very noisy, not going to use it for video. They are larger, obviously so. They're certainly sharper at f2 than either the 23mm F2, which begrudgingly is softer than its cousin, the 35mm F2 at f2. However, there's no such thing as a perfect lens. All lens design is a trade-off. For street, obviously the better choice for noise isn't an issue and you're not worried about video. The 23mm F1.4 is a wiser choice. It makes beautiful images. Of any of the three Fuji lenses, and I own every Fuji lens now except the 18mm, which I find to be rather abysmal. Most people agree that of all the Fuji lenses, not that it's a bad lens, but it's certainly the worst of the bunch. And that's the reason why you see them for sale everywhere, also the 18mm. Also so the 100 and 400mm Fuji. Many reasons I'm not extremely fond of that lens, not that it's a bad lens. Fuji makes excellent lenses, however, Fuji stuck their toes a little too deep into the zoom telephoto range as far as the design is concerned, at least to my liking. A little too much plastic and a little bit too soft, but we're not talking about that lens. So both of these lenses are noisy, but are also a lot faster. They're perfect for street photography. Absolutely love the 35mm F1.4. Which between the two is the better choice? Strictly between the 35mm 1.4 and the 23mm 1.4? To me, actually, the 23mm 1.4 is a better choice as a lens. 35mm on a crop sensor, basically 50mm, just doesn't cut it. I mean, you basically... If you could ask most of the professional photographers in the world, if you can glue one lens on your camera, what would it be? It would be some 35mm of some sort. For me, it would be like the 35mm Distagon, but that's on a full-frame sensor. So on a crop sensor, the 35mm field of view, we're basically talking about a 23mm lens. More universally useful. So what are you going to use in trade-off? Everything is a trade-off in life. It's like you can get a huge tank, and you know you'll never get whiplash if you're driving around in a tank, but it doesn't maneuver very well, and it gets poor gas mileage. Everything in lens design is exactly the same thing in car or automobile design. I don't know if a tank qualifies as an automobile. There's actually a crazy guy in England that owns a tank, and that's the only automobile he owns, or vehicle, and he drives it in and out of town. It's to pick up the groceries, as a neat show. I thought the English were far too liberal to allow someone to own a tank, but he's some crazy old war codger that only owns a tank. It's like, you'll never have to worry about getting in a traffic accident because he'll never get hurt. Same thing with lens design. So what are you going to choose? You're going to choose the smaller form factor, less noisy 23mm F2, which is an excellent lens. I absolutely love the hell out of it. Actually, I consider it one of the few You have to ask someone, what are you going to be shooting and what's your budget? If someone said, let's say I'm only going to buy 3 lenses, one of them's going to be a zoom, whatever that is, depending on the type of shooter they are. Really, like one must-own lens, I would absolutely say it's a 23mm f2. One, absolutely, regardless of what the hell sort of shooter you are. It's like, I want to have one nice lens. I want to buy 3 Fuji lenses. What would one of them absolutely be? Even without knowing what sort of shooter they are, the recommendation would be the 23mm f2. Is that to say that it's better than the 23mm F1.4? No, it's not. This lens, however, is an older design. It has aperture chatter. It's noisy. It's a little slow going between chimping and returning to shooting in autofocus mode. Same thing with the 35mm, however the aperture chatter and the noise is much worse on it. However, the images are spectacular, so what is it you're going to compromise on? Obviously, neither the 35mm f2 nor the 23mm f2 are going to compare at f2 to the 35mm 1.4 or the 23mm f1.4 at f2. That goes without saying. Even the 23mm is just a wee soft at f2. To me, that's no big deal. Other people, that's just like the end-all, be-all. It's like, well, so what? Step it down to f2.8, you know? Are you shooting in the crack of night? So neither one of the lenses are fast enough if you're going to be shooting night. I love using focus peaking. I don't particularly like the pullback ring on the 23mm f1.4, nor do I like it necessarily. I have no issues with it on the 16mm f1.4, which is Fuji's best lens. Faster lens, better bokeh, more shallow depth of field. Doesn't that go without saying? Do we have to make a video about the fact that the 23mm and the 35mm 1.4 have more shallow depth of field? Isn't that kind of stating the obvious? What sort of shooting are you doing that you will find that useful? Are you doing it where you would find that useful? A lot of people, the answer is yes. So are you willing to compromise the fact that there are much more expensive lenses? Especially the 23mm 1.4. The 35mm 1.4 has been around for quite a while. There's a lot of used ones. It's generally not that expensive. The 23mm 1.4, however, is pretty damn expensive. And pretty damn expensive compared to the 23mm f2, which is really damn cheap, price-wise. Huge disparity between these two, price-wise, whether they're on sale or not. Not that big of a disparity between a used 35mm 1.4 and the 35mm f2. Which one of these is the fifth wheel, the third nipple between these four lenses? Unquestionably, regardless of the type of shooter you are, it is the 35mm f2. Now, if I were to have only two lenses between these two, what would they be? To be honest with you, it'd be the 35mm 1.4 and the 23mm f2. It's like, well, the 23mm f2 is a bit soft at f2. Other people agree. You agree on that. Yes, but you asked if I could only have two of the focal lengths, which ones would I choose? Definitely the 35-1.4, which is beautiful for infrared, and so is the 23mm f2. So those are the trade-offs. All lens design is a trade-off. Those are the two identical focal lengths with different bokeh, different qualities, different attributes. One of them's noisy, one of them's not. Two of them have aperture chatter. One of them has a whole lot of aperture chatter. You know, what is it that you're going to choose? What sort of shooter are you? I mean, you're going to be a street photographer and you want to shallow depth of field, and speed is not that important to you? I would absolutely get the 23mm f1.4. However, that's not a cheap lens. It certainly is not. Even on sale, it's not. However, I got a steal on that lens. That was the last Fuji lens I was going to buy, and I really wasn't going to buy it, unless, $280. Are you kidding me? It's only got a slight AR coating mark on the front element. Doesn't affect a damn thing. I always have to put Nikon lens caps on my Fujis because they're so much better than the horrible lens caps that Fuji makes. These fall off too easy. They're a very poor design. Fuji's gone to a new design over these. Thank goodness. They've wised up. I can't believe I picked this lens up for under $300. That's absolutely remarkable. So that's anyway. Those are the compare and contrast between the two sets of 35 and the two sets of 23. If I could only have one lens out of these four, like I say, it would be the 23mm f2. It's small, it's inexpensive, it's quiet, it's plenty sharp enough, it's plenty fast enough for most things you want to do, and it's perfect for video work, Actually, it's just about the perfect lens of these four. However, that's goes without saying that the f1.4 can't be sneezed at. And the 35mm f1.4 is quite plentifully used and pretty damn cheap. Usually about 400 bucks, sometimes less. However, the 23mm f1.4 is usually, no, it's never that cheap. Even used, it's not that cheap. Used, what, 560 bucks, minimum 560 bucks. Almost basically $250 more used than the 35mm f1.4. Less than my case, where I found this incredible deal. I'm glad someone was jumping ship. I was able to get that lens really cheap. So that's the lowdown on the Fuji lenses. If you have any questions, let me know. I try to be helpful, logical, empirical, and objective so that I'm not giving out my personal opinions, rather stating things that you can make an intelligent choice on your own. Okay? Thanks. Bye.